It's Wednesday, the 13th of September, 2023. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Jennifer Duke.
Good morning.
Now, Jen, we've got 5 stories to get through in 5 minutes, so let's get into it. Story number 1, consumer confidence has come to a screeching halt. ANZ Roy Morgan's latest data released yesterday shows a 1.1 point hit to their index. And at the same time, you got Westpac Melbourne Institute Index of Consumer Sentiment also had a worrying fall. What's all this mean?
So consumer confidence has hit a roadblock, and that's despite the RBA keeping interest rates on hold last week. So ANZ economist Madeline Dunk says we're now in the longest stint on record under 80 points on their index. And for comparison, the monthly average since 1990 is around 111. And Westpac's Bill Evans says that it's the only time his survey has ever been this pessimistic before, and at sustained levels for over a year, except for during the recession of the early 1990s. And that's despite less than half of those surveyed now expecting rates to rise over the next 12 months, down from 68% in August.
Now, you're the economics correspondent for Capital Brief, so I'm talking to the right person to get a bit of an explanation on this. What is dragging it all down?
So the interesting thing is that on both measures, it's renters who are experiencing the biggest hit in their confidence, and that's weighing on the indexes. And that actually aligns with data from SQM research yesterday that shows vacancy rates are being squeezed yet again, and we might see a spike in homelessness. And mortgage holders are actually the least confident of the bunch still, according to ANZ, but their confidence level has started to lift to the highest that we've seen in 5 months. And that likely reflects all the discussion about the end of interest rate rises and potential future cuts.
All right, from a business perspective, what's the implications here?
So NAB's business survey for August has also just been released, and business conditions were up slightly, but it remains below average. And crucially, retail is still the weakest. So car retailing, personal and household goods are all weighing down sentiment. We know that shoppers are going to be cold at the moment.
Okay. All right. On to story number 2. Now, the federal government is finally introducing new legislation into Parliament today to help small businesses with their energy transformation. It's called the Small Business Energy Incentive. It's expected to help up to 3.8 million small and medium-sized businesses cut down their utility bills.
So this was a huge federal budget announcement, and it's a bonus tax deduction available to businesses with turnover of less than $50 million. And it provides a 20% deduction on up to $100,000 of spending that helps support energy efficiency and electrification. So that's a potential $20,000 back in your pocket. And Treasurer Jim Chalmers has called on the coalition to pass the bill, describing it as a way to help small businesses share in the opportunities of the energy transition. We'll see whether his calls are answered, though.
Okay, story number 3, the Governance Institute released its Ethics Index 2023 yesterday. And Janet found that the media is the least ethical sector, which I personally am offended and outraged by, but this isn't about me. The least ethical occupation title goes to real estate agents. And I don't know whether people will be surprised. I'm a bit too wary of saying anything.
Look, this report always generates an awful lot of buzz, particularly around those occupations that get listed as the least ethical. And real estate agents did indeed rank at the bottom of the list again, but that was actually followed by directors of foreign companies operating in Australia, and they ranked worse than federal politicians and state politicians. And at the top of the list were fire service workers, AMBOs, pharmacists, GPs, and childcare workers as the most ethical. Fascinating, but we probably knew that. And in terms of organizations, the worst were payday lenders, followed by TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Foreign companies operating in Australia and journalists also ranked pretty poorly, I'm sorry to say. And outside of the ranking, it was kind of interesting that the survey also found that the importance of ethics was at an all-time high, and that was driven by millennials and Gen X respondents.
Story number 4, Mexican fast food chain Guzman Y Gomez is planning to list on the ASX potentially as soon as late 2024.
So the business originally started as just one store in Sydney's Newtown, founded in 2006, and now it's got more than 180 restaurants in 4 countries and boasts $759 million in sales globally. Now, CEO Stephen Marks told the media the potential listing is all about the timing, but they are actually gearing up for it. And its current suite of investors includes some big names. So it's Barrenjoey, Aware Super, Athletic Ventures, Point King Capital, and TDM Growth Partners. And a really fun fact, Mark said that they're the biggest buyers of avocados in Australia outside of the supermarkets and get through $8.5 million a year.
That is a lot of avocados. Last one, story number 5. Jen, at the moment, if you take drink cans and beer bottles to a container deposit bin, you get 10 cents back in most states, that is. But should you be able to get 10 cents back for every wine bottle as well? Because at the moment, they are not part of the scheme. And it is a question that's really starting to create a bit of a wine war, I suppose you'd call it.
So there are container deposit schemes across the country, and they were put in place to reduce litter and encourage recycling. But wine bottles typically aren't included because they're something people tend to drink at home and not out and about. But there's going to be this alignment of the different state deposit scheme rules by the end of 2025. And interestingly, Queensland, though, is going to start including wine bottles from November this year. So will all wine bottles be able to be put in the return and earn bins? Wine industry veteran Mitchell Taylor hopes not. He told The Australian this could be a major financial hit to the wine industry to the tune of $100 million. And that's because the cost of providing that 10 cents back to the consumer is actually around 20 cents a bottle when factoring in the refund, relabeling and other costs. Taylor says that margins are tight at the moment for the wine industry and they can't afford it.
Okay, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Jen.
Thanks so much, Michael.
It is Wednesday, the 13th of September, 2023. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed Business News, wherever you listen to podcasts. And today's Wednesday, which means there's a new episode as well of our other podcast, How Do They Afford That?, which is all about making your money work a little bit harder for you. Today's episode is all about choosing mobile phones and the decisions that you have to make from a financial perspective, whether you go on a prepaid plan, whether you buy your phone outright, all of those things that you have to weigh up when you're buying a new phone. I'll put a link in today's show notes and you can also find that one wherever you listen to podcasts as well. I'm Michael Thompson and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.